everyone, it's Lynnea for LDRS Creative, and we're going to take a look at the Cozy Halloween Cardmaking Kit. This kit has just about everything you need to make at least 12 cards, and these will be A2 cards. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Cozy Halloween Cardmaking Kit, and inside you're going to find 12 white envelopes. And then there are also 12 white A2 card bases. So the cards that you create will be able to fit right in the envelope, so you can create and mail them without any hassle. Really, all you need to add to this kit is your choice of adhesive. Like I said, these are A2 cards and they are side folding card bases. There are also 12 printed A2 toppers. You're going to get 3 each of 4 different designs. And I'm going to go ahead and flip through these designs. Here's this first one. It's a gorgeous fully printed background. All you really need to do is add a sentiment. Then there's this other background that has gorgeous leaves and other fall pieces here. This one just has leaves and pumpkins, so this one doesn't even have to be Halloween if you want to dig into your stash and find some fall themed sentiments. And then there's this last panel with the diamond shape in the center. You're also going to get some sentiments, and these are 6 die-cut shaped frames with sentiments on them. And each one is different. Each sentiment is different, but there are 2 different shapes, and you're going to get 3 of each shape. There's 3 of the diamonds, and then there are 3 of the arches. And I'm going to show you here in just a second, but remember those printed A2 toppers from just a couple seconds ago? These arches and diamonds are going to fit right into the center of some of those designs if you want to. I'll show you how to do that later on in the video, and then I'll also show you using one of these printed sentiment frames on one of the backgrounds that don't have this shape in the middle. So you can definitely mix and match these if you want, but they do fit right into the center of a few of these different card background panels. I just showed you the diamond, and now I'm going to grab one that has the arch shape on it so you can see how perfectly it nests inside. And there is a little bit of a frame, so you really get that dimensional look. Next up, there are die-cut characters, little ghost, a witch's hat, pumpkins, bats, everything creepy, spooky, Halloween-y. I absolutely love these die-cut characters, and you do get multiples of each design, so you can use them here and there throughout your card projects. Next up, you get 2 rub-on transfer sheets, and these rub-on transfers have sentiments as well as icons that you can use throughout your cards. And I will be showing you how to use them, both the sentiments and the icons, on a whole bunch of the cards that I make today. So that's everything that's included in the Cozy Halloween Card Making Kit. Just about everything you need. You do just need to bring in some of your own adhesive. I'm going to be using liquid adhesive, and then I have 2 different thicknesses of foam tape. The first one is my 1/16 of an inch foam tape. That's what I use most of the time. But then I also have 1/8 of an inch thick foam tape. I'll use that double thick foam tape when I want something to be really dimensional. If you don't have it, you could just fold regular foam tape over on itself, or just go with the single thickness. Alright, we're going to go ahead and start making. So I have grabbed a card base, I've grabbed one of the printed A2 toppers, and then I have some of the rub-ons that I'm going to use as well. I'm going to start by using my liquid adhesive and just adhering my printed panel to my card. And all I'm going to do to this one is add a sentiment. So I have my rub-on transfers. I'm going to show you how to use them if you've never used them before. I'm holding both sheets of the rub-ons together. So there's a front sheet, the clear one that has the printing on it, and then there's a backer. I'm holding both of those together and cutting out my sentiment. Then I'm going to remove my backer, and I'm going to place that front piece, the clear acetate that has the rub-on transfer on it. I'm going to place that down on my card panel right where I want it to go. Then I'm using my bone folder to rub over the sentiment. These rub-ons transfer absolutely beautifully, but if you want to make sure you have even pressure without any effort at all, you can run it through your die cutting machine. Then I'm going to pull up that clear acetate, and you're going to see I have nothing left on it. The sentiment transferred beautifully. that's all I'm going to do to this first card. I have 3 of the same background in the Cozy Halloween Cardmaking Kit, so I'm going to show you how to use rub-on sentiments in a different way on each of these backgrounds. So I grabbed a second background, and I'm going to use the same sentiment, so I have the second sheet of rub-ons, because remember you get a duplicate here, you get 2 sheets of those rub-ons. I'm going to use the same sentiment, but in a different way. This time I have a piece of white cardstock from my stash, and I'm going to place that sentiment onto the bottom of my white cardstock, just kind of lining the sentiment up at the bottom. Then just like I did before, I'm going to use my bone folder and transfer that sentiment on, making sure I rub over all of those areas and then peel up that acetate slowly. If I don't get a complete transfer, I can place that back down and rub over that again. Then I'll use my paper trimmer and just trim this out into a sentiment strip. You could add your sentiment strip to the panel just as it is, but I thought it would be fun to add some of the icons from the rub-on transfer sheets. So I'm going to take a couple of the little bats, just cut them out, remove the backer, place it down on my sentiment strip, and then rub over it with my bone folder to transfer that image. I'll do that on both sides of my sentiment, so I'm going to use 2 of the little bats. Again, just removing the backer, placing that rub-on transfer down onto the sentiment strip right where I want it to go. Then I'll rub over that with my bone folder to transfer the image and peel off that clear acetate front piece. And that's my sentiment strip. You could leave it as is, but I'm going to flag the edges into a banner by just cutting up the center and then cutting in from each of the sides to reach that center point. It's a really easy way to create a flag edge without any hassle at all. I'll grab some foam tape and add a little bit of dimension behind that sentiment and add it to the bottom of my card. So here you can see the difference in the 2 cards. Even though I've used the same printed A2 topper and the same sentiment, you get a totally different look by changing up the sentiment. Here's the third card using that same background again, and I've chosen a different sentiment this time. And I'm going to transfer that rub-on sentiment onto a piece of white cardstock again. I really liked the way the white cardstock just kind of helped give it some extra dimension. I removed the backer and then placed the rub-on transfer onto the white cardstock, and then I'm using my bone folder to rub over that sentiment completely to make sure that that has a full transfer. And then I'm going to peel back that white or the clear acetate layer on top. And then again, I'll use my paper trimmer just to trim out that sentiment into a sentiment strip. I'm playing around with where I want the sentiment strip to be placed, and then I decided to flag just the right edge. So again, I'm cutting up the center and then from one corner to the center and then the other corner to the center, and that creates that little ribbon or flag banner edge. I'm moving that sentiment strip around, and I think I have it where I want it to go now, and I decided to bring in some more of those icon rub-ons and just add them to the card here and there. It's going to look like everything is part of that printed background, but you and I will know that we added some extra things here and there to kind of bring this whole image together. So I'm going to add another bat and then a little pumpkin down at the bottom. I really thought that those were cute little additions. So removing that backer, placing the rub-on transfer down onto my card where I want it to go. Then I'll grab my bone folder and rub over that little pumpkin image completely and repeat the process with the bat. I added some foam tape behind my sentiment, and I did eventually settle on having this coming in from the lower left side of the card. So I'm going to align that sentiment strip so that it's straight across the bottom of my card. And then I'll just use my scissors to cut off the overhanging part of the sentiment so that everything lines up on that left edge. And this is the third card I created with the Cozy Halloween Cardmaking Kit. And all 3 of these are using the same background and rub-on transfers, but each one of them looks different. I absolutely love the way you can mix and match the elements of this kit to personalize your cards and make them your own. All right, let's move on to another set of backgrounds. This time I'm going to use the one with the arch in the center, the one that just has the leaves and the pumpkins. I thought this one was really cute. And again, if you want to make this one more fall, if you have a fall themed sentiment, you could just stamp that right in the center of that arch. I chose one of the die cut shaped frames, one of the arches that are going to fit right in the center there. And it has a nice sentiment already printed on it, so I don't have to do any work at all. And then I added some double thick foam tape behind that die cut just so that it would really pop up and give me a whole lot of dimension. I lined that up in the center of my card, and then I chose just a couple of the die cut ephemera pieces, and I'm going to just add that witch's hat and that coffee mug down in the lower left hand corner using some foam tape. Really nice, really easy and simple, and this card will be finished before you know it. I think this kit would be great for card making if you have cards to give out at Halloween to maybe teachers or people you work with. This would make really fast and easy cards that are absolutely beautiful. I'm going to grab the items that I need for my next card. I'm using that same printed A2 topper. I've already adhered it onto a card base using my liquid adhesive. I have a different die cut shaped frame with a different sentiment on it, and then I have some of the pumpkin die cut ephemera. I wanted to kind of create the look of a little pumpkin patch, and I thought that this background would be great to do that since this one is a fall themed background. And even my sentiment, I chose the one about pumpkin kisses and autumn wishes, so this one could definitely just be more general autumn and not necessarily Halloween. Here's a trick that I use all the time when I'm working with multiple embellishment pieces that I want to line up across a card and adhere. Once I fiddle with them and get them placed how I want, I don't want to have to adhere them one at a time because I know I'm never going to get the placement just right ever again. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of low-tech tape. You could use washi tape or whatever you have that's just low-tech so that you can grab all of these images at once. Then I'm going to take my liquid adhesive. I have LDRS Creative Craft Glue in a fine tip bottle, and I'm just going to squeeze tiny little bits of glue behind each of the pumpkins to stick them down and adhere them to each other. And then I have a strip of foam tape that I'm going to use and go straight across and just use that foam tape to adhere all those pumpkins together. So now instead of working with 4 individual pumpkins, I have just one ephemera piece that I can easily pop up onto my card instead of having to fiddle around with 4 individual pumpkins. So here's this card. It's absolutely adorable. I really love it. Here's the third of that same printed background. I again have one of the arch die cut shaped frames, and it's a completely different sentiment. This time I'm going spooky with ghosts and goblins, and I'm going to again add some foam tape behind that arch shape and adhere that right in the center of my card. I'm just adhering this with some double thick foam tape so that it really pops up and gives me a lot of dimension. And then I have some of the spooky die cut ephemera pieces. I have 2 ghosts actually, and then I have the little jack-o'-lantern and one of the bats. I'm going to play around with the placement on my card before I add any adhesive, and once I have it the way I like, I'll grab my foam tape as well as my liquid adhesive and just start adding these onto my card. I like using a mix of foam tape and liquid adhesive because that makes sure that everything's going to hold on tight and not move anywhere. Now, as I was kind of finishing this up, I realized that I thought it looked kind of weird. I needed to bring in one more element, so I grabbed one of those tiny little green pumpkins from the rub-on transfers, and you're going to see how easily this transfers even though I'm working on top of a layer of foam tape, so I don't have anything firm behind this. You could see that kind of pressing into the foam tape, but even with that little bit of give, it transferred beautifully and perfectly. So let's take a look at all 3 of the cards that I made using this same background. Each one of them are different, not only just because of the change in sentiment, but because I switched up between the rub-ons and the ephemera pieces. So even though I'm using the same layout and the same background, each one of these cards are different. All right, so we are just about, I think we're halfway through the cards now. So I'm going to switch over to this third style of background. That's definitely more spooky. You still have those leaves with the mug in the background, but you also have the jack-o'-lanterns and those adorable ghosts. So this is what I call spooky cute. Here's where I made a mistake in my crafting, but I kept it in so you can see how I fixed it. I thought that I wanted to layer up some of the rub-on transfers down at the bottom of this diamond die-cut shaped frame. So I started with one of the pumpkins and just removed the backer, placed that down, and then rubbed it on. Then I did the same thing with the ghost, and here's where I should have realized that these rub-on transfers, especially the ghost, because the ghost is white, it's transparent. And you can't really see it on the white background. So I should have known before I transferred it, and I should have stopped. But I thought that maybe it would work out. So I went ahead and transferred all three, and you can see that you just can't see that little ghosty very well. So I decided to just cover up my mistake because I wasn't going to toss away that sentiment. I really liked it, and I thought it was super cute. So instead of trashing it and having to start over, I just grabbed a couple of the die-cut ephemera pieces, popped them up with foam tape, and covered up my little goof with the rub-on transfers. And again, nobody's going to know except you and me. Whoever I give this card to, they're never going to know that I made a mistake. They're never going to know that I've covered something up. So I really encourage you that if you've made an oopsie on a card, try to find a way to cover it up, whether it's with an embellishment or another die-cut piece. A lot of times you can cover up your mistake and the recipient of your card is never even going to know. Once I have the placement down for my die-cut ephemera pieces, I'm going to go ahead and just layer them up with some foam tape. I ended up going with one of the ghosts, the pumpkin, and the bat ephemera pieces, pretty much in the same layout that I had hoped to do with the rub-on transfers, but I just switched them out for the die-cut ephemera pieces because those are not transparent and they have a little bit more dimension to them. Then I added that witch's hat to the top so that it overhangs that sentiment die-cut piece just a little bit. Then I'll pop up that entire thing into the center of my A2 printed panel. And this card is finished. It turned out super, super cute, even though I have that mistake that's completely covered up. I'm going to grab what I need for the second card for this background. And again, I've gone with that same printed background, the same shape of the sentiment, but a different sentiment. This one says, "Wishing you a happy Halloween." I thought that was really cute. And then I have some more of the die-cut ephemera pieces. And I'm going to layer these onto my card, just kind of playing around with placement and getting an idea of how I want things to go before I actually bring in any of my adhesive. I like to play around and get it set, maybe even snap a picture of it with my phone so that I know how I wanted it to look before I bring in any of my permanent adhesive. Once I've played around and I have things down, I'm going to add some foam tape behind those ephemera pieces and stick them onto that die-cut sentiment shape. And then I'll add that die-cut sentiment shape right into the center of my card, lining that up so that it creates that shadow in the center of the printed panel. And here is my second card using this diamond-shaped printed background. Totally different from the first card I made, but still you can definitely see it has that cohesiveness. Now here's where I'm going to kind of step outside of the box, and I am using that same printed background with that diamond shape in the middle, so you could add the third diamond sentiment, but instead I'm going to go with one of the large rub-on transfer sentiments. I found one that would fit perfectly inside of this printed topper, so I removed the backer and I'm going to use my bone folder to just rub over this whole sentiment. Now this one is going to take me a little bit longer because it's bigger, but you can see that I still got a perfect transfer just by using my bone folder. Now here's where I'm also going to bring in a black marker. I know a lot of us have some kind of black marker or black pen in our stash, and it's something I've been reaching for a lot lately in my cards, just to kind of doodle here and there. You could skip this step if you're not a fan of doodling, but I just grabbed a fine point. This is just a Sharpie. I actually had it in my kitchen, and I brought it up into my craft room, and I used it to outline the inside of that diamond frame on the sentiment die cut toppers, you had that frame that's printed, so you got that dimension, but I kind of lost that by using the rub-on transfer, so I just used the pen to bring that back in and outline that diamond shape and just give it some more dimension. It's totally flat, the rub-on transfer sentiment is flat, and the black pen outlining is flat, but it gives it that little bit of pop. Then I added some little squiggle lines here and there, added my die cut ephemera, all popped up, and here is my card. I'm going to bring in the other two that I used with this same A2 topper, and here you can see what I was talking about with that frame. It's printed onto there, that outline, and I thought using that black pen to outline the diamond shape really gave it some more character. So here's all three cards that are totally different using that same background. Now we're going to move on. We're in the final stretch of the Cozy Halloween Card Making Kit. This is the last background. And this one is just a cute background. You don't need to do a whole lot to it. I chose one of the rub-on transfer sentiments again, and I cut that out with my scissors. And here's where I'm just going to play around. I have some die cut ephemera, I have some of the rub-on transfers, and what I thought I wanted to do was just build up some of the pumpkins and the ghost down in the bottom left-hand corner. I'll have my sentiment in the center, and then add some little bats in a visual triangle here and there around my sentiment. So I used my scissors, trimmed out that sentiment from the rub-on transfer sheets, and then I'm going to peel off the backer and transfer that onto my card using my bone folder. Again, I'm being careful to make sure that I have transferred my whole sentiment evenly. I'm going to carefully peel off that acetate, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the cute little bats. I'm starting with the smallest one, and I'm going to put that up in the top left-hand corner, kind of right near my sentiment. Then I have a larger one that I'm going to add slightly diagonally up from that one, and then a third little bat that I'll add towards the bottom. So this is just going to create a visual triangle of bats here and there, just kind of like they're flitting around my sentiment. Then I'll take those die cut ephemera pieces, the ghost, the two pumpkins, and the bat, and I'll arrange them down in the bottom left-hand corner of my card, just accenting the elements that are already printed on that background paper and just adding to it, but I'm adding that double thick foam tape so that it pops up and it gives me some instant dimension. Here's that finished card. I love how this looks with the sentiment flat with the background in the back, and then the elements popped up in the front. I had that diamond shaped die cut frame left from the previous background where I used a rub-on transfer instead of the coordinating diamond shape. So I thought, why not use it on this card? But I'm going to alter it a little bit so that it really stands out from the card. I have some temporary adhesive that I'm adding to the back of that die cut shape, and then I'm going to just place this onto some black cardstock. Now if you have a diamond die that cuts the same shape, you could use that. I don't have one, so I'm just going to use my scissors, and I added that temporary adhesive so that it stays stuck temporarily down onto my black cardstock. Then I'm using my long scissors just to trim out around this shape, and if I don't get it absolutely perfect, that's okay, because this is only temporarily adhered, so I'm going to be able to pop that up and recenter it if I need to. But now I have some instant dimension just by using a simple fussy cutting technique. I know I want my sentiment to be right in the center of my card, and then I have a mixture of die cut character ephemera pieces and some of the rub-on transfers that I'm going to add here and there across my card panel. I'm going to fuss and play around a little bit with the placement of all of my elements, and once I get it down, I'm going to start with the rub-on transfers because those are going to be flat on the sentiment or on the card base, wherever I choose to put them, and then the die cut ephemera pieces I can pop up on top. So this little mug here, that's a rub-on. I'm going to remove the backer and then place that down onto my card, rub over that clear acetate to transfer the design, and then remove that clear acetate and I'll have my transfer on my sentiment. I'm going to do the same thing with the witch's hat here. I removed the backer, rubbing over the image with my bone folder, and then I'm going to peel back the acetate and I'll have a perfect transfer. I have, I think, one more rub-on transfer that I'm going to do. I think it's a little pumpkin, so I'm going to remove the backer and then place that down onto my card where I want it to go, right up at the top near and kind of overlapping that witch's hat. Once I have that placed, I will rub it in place with my bone folder and then remove that clear acetate topper to have my completed look. From here, I'm going to grab some foam tape and I'm going to add my additional elements like the little bat. It's going to go right on top of those rub-on transfers, and then I have the pumpkins that I'm going to put down at the bottom so that it looks like that coffee mug is kind of cozied behind the pumpkin and the ghost. Then I'll add some of that double thick foam tape behind my die cut sentiment piece with the backer that I cut with my scissors, and I'll pop that up right in the center of my card. So that is the 11th card that I made with the Cozy Halloween Card Making Kit. We are coming into the last card, and I need to give the hugest of apologies because I didn't realize that after I held up my last card to the camera, my camera lost focus. So the entirety of me making this card is blurry, but I wanted to keep it in because I pulled in some different elements from my craft stash to show you how you can alter this card making kit if you wanted to. So it's a little bit blurry, but I do have a still photo after I have completed the making of this card so that you can see it in greater detail. Now I have that same background and a sentiment, and I'm bringing in my elegant pinpoint rectangle shapes, and I'm going to choose one that will perfectly fit the sentiment that I'm going to use. I'm going to transfer my sentiment onto white cardstock like I have throughout this whole video. So again, I apologize that this is blurry, but this part is not new. I have removed the backer from my sentiment, placed it onto my white cardstock, and then I'm using my bone folder to transfer this sentiment on, and then I'll remove that clear acetate from the top. Now I'm just going to die cut this sentiment. So instead of adding the sentiment onto one of the printed panels or something else, I have added this onto white cardstock, and then I'm going to die cut it with a shape so that I can add some dimension with foam tape onto my card. I'm going to tape that die in place, run that through my die cutting machine, and then I've used the die that is just slightly larger to die cut some black cardstock so that I can layer these together. Now I thought since I had some black cardstock behind my sentiment that I would add some behind my topper as well. So I'm grabbing my paper trimmer and I'm trimming 1/8 of an inch off of each side of my panel. If you wanted to, you could just trim 1/4 of an inch off the long side and 1/4 of an inch off the tall side, but I wanted to make sure that this design remained centered, so that's why I did 1/8 of an inch off of each side. Now I've grabbed my black Sharpie again, and I'm just going to add some detail lines anywhere where the topper is white and doesn't have any of the printed leaves and pumpkins and such. So I just drew some straight lines and then some squiggly lines across there just for some added detail. Then I have a piece of black cardstock that I have added to the card base, and you can see here how this is going to start getting layered up. Now I have a little bowl that I keep all of my kit elements in, and I had some of these little rub-on icons left. So I grabbed a bunch of them and just kind of cut them out from the rub-on transfer sheets, and I still have the backer attached. So these are not sticky backed yet. I'm going to be able to move them around as if they are ephemera pieces. And I'm just going to cut some of these icons out and place them here and there around my sentiment. I just want to be able to accent this and bring in that fall and Halloween vibe. So I'm going to cut out icons, move them around my card until I'm satisfied with how I have that, and then I can start transferring them. I'm transferring them onto my sentiment panel just like I have been doing throughout this video by removing the backer, placing the image down, and then rubbing over it with my bone folder, and then peeling back that clear acetate piece to reveal the rub-on that's been transferred onto my sentiment panel. I'm going to continue working here, just adding my rub-on transfers here and there so that it accents my sentiment. And I did end up omitting that 5th green pumpkin. I just thought that it looked too heavy with it. I thought that the 4 kind of pointing out the four corners-ish. They're a little off-center, but I thought that that looked better than having that other pumpkin in there. Now I've added foam tape behind all of my elements so that I can really get some dimensional elements here. I've popped up that printed panel as well as the sentiment, and this is the finished card that I created using this last background. Now I know, again, I can't apologize enough that it was blurry, but here is a still photo of all three of the cards using that same background so that you could see them side by side, just like I did with the other cards in this video, but I wanted to make sure that at least the finished products were crisp and clear for you. That's it. That is all 12 cards that I created using the Cozy Halloween Card Making Kit. I'm going to show you them all one more time so that you can see them kind of laid out together to see how, even though I'm using the same background 3 times over, they all look different, and how each of these cards, even though each one is different, they are all cohesive, so that if you wanted to, you could make a set of these cards and give them as a gift, or you could make these and give them to your friends or to your teachers, to people in the office that you work with. And even though they're all from the same card making kit, each one of these cards are going to be different and special and unique. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and that if you want to, you can use this as a jumping off point for inspiration so that you can see this and create your own cards, or even recreate these cards exactly as I've done so that you have some quick and easy Halloween cards to give out this Halloween. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed, and I will see you again really soon. Thanks again. Bye.